Hey folks, Worst here with another video. Today I wanted to take a look at all the items that either still are or at one point were in the game files, and that either got discontinued and removed from the game or otherwise unreleased altogether. Without any further ado, let's get right into the video. Number 15. Firework Potion. It was a scrapped potion that was to be released alongside Snapdragons and the Brimhaven Agility Arena. We aren't really sure of its effects, but given the name and the examine text, which reads, "A firework potion, this'll look pretty," we can speculate that it was going to be largely cosmetic, maybe even just showing the level up fireworks. I sure know I wouldn't be using my Snapdragons on these things, but it's a pretty cool thing to discover in the cache nonetheless. Number 14. Ooh, alright, this is kind of a multi-parter. We're talking about, throw the list up. Blue sweets, deep blue sweets, white sweets, purple sweets, red sweets, green sweets, pink sweets. Yeah, this entry is kind of a weird one, and it mostly makes the list because I find it interesting that they added this for a Halloween event and then later used the same model for an item that is accessible and widely traded on the Grand Exchange till today. In the 2005 Halloween event, trick-or-treating was temporarily added to the game for the spooky season, and a whole host of candy was up for grabs, namely the blue, deep blue, white, red, green, pink, and purple sweets I already mentioned. No, not those purple sweets. Those wouldn't come out until a year later in 2006. That all being said, it sort of makes me wish we got to choose which color of candy we stuff into our gullet for tick-eating hits. Or just getting a bit of an energy boost, I guess. Would it have been bloat to add in a bunch of colored candy that all does the same thing? Yes, of course, but they already did it for the Halloween event. And those were largely useless. At least if they made them function like sweets from Treasure Trails, the candy would be useful. Number 13. Axe heads and axe handles. Okay, hear me out. I'm really showing my RuneScape boomerisms here, I know. Negative random events like this were moved from the game for being annoying, distracting, and somewhat confusing for new players. That all being said, I grew up with them, so I sort of, on some deep, dark level, miss chopping a tree and having to go pick up my axe head because it flew off, and then needing to reattach it to the handle before getting back to my willow trees. Truly simpler times. That being said, maybe I have fonder memories of this one because it's more funny and mildly inconvenient compared to, say, the bad random event for mining as an example, where rocks could randomly spew gas, and if you don't stop mining in time, an explosion will not only damage you, but it will mangle your pickaxe, making you need to stop and make a trip to Bob and Lumbridge to repair your broken pickaxe so you can get back to mining your copper and tin ore. Truly simpler times. Oh, right, I said that already. Alright, moving on to the next one. Number 12. Thingy. 7 amulets, all named Thingy, have existed in the cache. They're all the same, but with different charge amounts. The examine text for each thingy is Mabob, and while these have never been accessible in-game, they were mistakenly seen on the Grand Exchange like a couple of the other items on this list. An unknown Jagex moderator commented on Thingy when asked, saying, "Content development often adds little jokes to their updates. Sometimes we're told about them before they're added to the game. Occasionally, they believe it would be more amusing to just add them without telling us. Then we get lots of messages asking what a thingy is. As a developer myself, I love this. My development environment is full of weirdly named things like this. But apparently according to the wiki, thingy has all been phased out, with the last of them being changed to a Barbarian Assault healer icon in 2019. Number 11. Free-to-play Starter Pack. This item was given away by Jagex moderators in February of 2015 with the launch of permanent free-to-play servers for Old School Runescape. This is about 2 years after the release of Old School Runescape itself, which at that point was a paid-only version of the game. You had to be a member in order to play Old School Runescape at the time at all. The free-to-play starter pack was a gift box that they would give out to random players in free-to-play worlds to both hype up the release as well as give those playing around the launch of free-to-play a little boost for their free-to-play journey. The actual items inside of the starter pack aren't anything to write home about really, but they're better than what you left Tutorial Island with, so I'm sure for a fresh account it's better than nothing. Items inside can be seen on screen here, with some highlights being gear for each combat style, as well as some iron tools for woodcutting and mining. This item is technically discontinued because they've just not since released anymore, as these were handed out manually. The box also seems to have a stand-in now with the Adventure Path system, although the rewards from that are kind of just a worse version of the free-to-play starter kit, shown on screen here. Number 10. Makeover Voucher. This item was added in 2005 with the release of the Recruitment Drive quest. There was a fight in the quest where male characters literally could not do damage to the quest NPC, Sir Lee, aka Surly, with him exclaiming things like, "No man can defeat him." This was likely a reference to Lord of the Rings, wherein the Witch King Angmar, who was prophesied not to be felled by the hand of man, was slain by Princess Eowyn, a woman. This fight was changed in 2022, now anyone can damage Surly, regardless of anything. The Makeover Voucher was a quest reward for those who started the quest as a man and needed to hit the Makeover Mage to become a woman for the quest temporarily. The voucher could be brought back to the Makeover Mage for a free makeover, basically just kind of refunding the player for needing to use the service in the first place. Obviously, this item is now inaccessible because of the new quest design, not needing your player to be a man. Number 9. Man-Speak Amulet. This is a very short-lived item. It was a random event exclusive item, only used in the Evil Bob's Island random event. If you've never done it, Evil Bob's Island takes place on Scape Rune, a sort of reverse version of Gielinor that we know and love. A bizarre place to which the only known locations currently are Bob's Island and a prison. The only inhabitants shown have been Evil Bob and his servant, Prison Pete and his balloon animals, and finally, at least for the 2019 Christmas event, Anti-Santa. Scape Rune is a strange land where you fish already cooked fish, only to uncook them, a place where balloon animals walk around on their own, one where cats rule over humans and humans do their bidding. Wait, that sounds kind of normal actually on that last one. But the other stuff I listed is super weird. So that crazy backwards land being the place where you find an item called Man-Speak Amulet, kind of a reverse Cat-Speak Amulet we all know of, makes kind of perfect sense, honestly. That all being said, it only lasted in the game for a total of 2 months because it apparently made 0 sense to new players and just outright confused all those who interacted with it. The item was in the game cache until 2016, when it was removed with the introduction of the Great Corinne and Zaya because the model was reused and recolored to become the original Xerix Talisman, which itself was later changed, so maybe the original Xerix Talisman could make the list too. But it didn't. Number 8. Extra Dimensional Bag. This is a scrapped Leagues item from the first Trailblazers League, so maybe it shouldn't make the list by that alone, but I'm a Leagues fanboy and this item sounded too awesome not to talk about. The Extra Dimensional Bag was essentially going to be a second inventory for you that you could haul around with you. The bag would have had a similar mechanic to the looting bag, offering an entire 28 additional inventory slots to hold your stuff for you. But unlike the looting bag, you can use it anywhere in the game, not only limited to depositing items in the wilderness and withdrawing them in a bank. It would have pretty much been able to hold anything other than like other container items, because that could get a bit hectic to manage from a code perspective, I suppose. This item would have totally changed the meta for skilling and bossing. Is what I would have said if not for the other relic that did launch with that league, Last Recall, kind of trivializing the benefits, a little bit at least. But this still would have seen use at things like instance encounters and perhaps some other things like AFKing longer at places between Last Recall teleports and such like that. Number 7. And now for the second bag in a row, we're talking about the sleeping bag this time from the RuneScape 2 beta. Those of us who played during RuneScape Classic know of the fatigue system and sleeping. Those who don't, you had a fatigue level in Classic which raised from 0 to 100% by doing various activities in-game. Once you've reached 100% fatigue, it mostly prevented you from gaining any more experience until you rest. Resting presented you with a captcha, and once you entered it, you could continue skilling. It was an annoying and questionably effective early anti-botting mechanism, and that's where sleeping bags came in. This shows that because it's in the cache, they were at one point in development considering fatigue for RuneScape 2. They even updated the model for RuneScape 2. Thankfully, this was swapped out for random events and we don't have to deal with fatigue anymore. Number 6. Trailblazer Trophy. The Trailblazer Trophy was supposed to come out alongside Leagues 2 Trailblazer, but because of community outcry, it was removed and never made it into the game. The other trophies still came out as intended, but this one would only be for the top 100 people on the league high scores, which is kinda insane. I mean, I play a lot of leagues when it comes out, and I've not even gotten to the next best trophy, Dragon. 2,842 players were eligible for the Dragon Trophy during Trailblazer. I am all for flexes to show off, but perhaps top 100 was just asking too much of your players, which is why it didn't make it into the game. Number 5. Soul Talisman. This item has existed in the game's cache a couple times now. It was initially added in 2003 along with the RuneScape 2 beta, then later again in 2004 it was left in the game's code with the launch of RuneScape 2, but it was never used. Later in 2016, when the Great Corrend was added to Old School Runescape, the item was removed from the cache only to be re-added to the game cache very recently with the Yama release in May of 2025. So maybe they do plan on doing something with it, even though the Soul Altar that we have in game now does not require a talisman to use. Maybe it could be something like the current Surface Blood Altar in Corrend versus the True Blood Altar in Mauritania. Number 4. Pumpkin Pie. You might be asking, what's so interesting about pumpkin pie? I have it every year around the holiday season. And yeah, fair point. This item was added with the 2021 Halloween event. It existed in the event, but was wholly meant to be unobtainable. Your character eats the pie during a cutscene and ends up with an empty pie dish in your inventory afterwards. However, some players were able to glitch the pie out of the event somehow, and because of an oversight in the Grand Exchange code, players were able to put in buy and sell offers for this pie, which should not have been accessible for anyone in reality. After the event ended, the item was edited to be made untradeable on the 24th of October. Then 3 days later, another change was made to remove it from the Grand Exchange, make it unnotable, as well as cancel any unfulfilled Grand Exchange offers for it. When the Halloween event ended, all pies from the players' inventories and banks were removed from the game. The wiki says that any unclaimed offers, however, were not removed. So theoretically, if you put in a buy offer for a pumpkin pie in 2021, successfully bought, but never claimed it, you could be the proud owner of one of Old School RuneScape's most rare items. Assuming JX even lets you complete the Grand Exchange offer and actually claim the item, that is. If not, you can still look at the completed offer at least, and know you've got a piece of glitch history. Number 3. Elemental Longsword, RuneScape 2 Beta. This entry is an item added to the code as part of the RuneScape 2 Beta in December of 2003. Apparently, we were initially going to get some elemental weaponry either alongside or instead of the elemental shield from Elemental Workshop 1. This item never seemed to actually make it into the game in an accessible state for the players, but it would have been cool to see what this would have potentially been used for. Maybe it would have been a melee magic hybrid weapon, being as the elemental shield is a metal shield with magic bonuses. Or perhaps it would have eventually got the same niche as the elemental shield has, where it's used against wyverns. Perhaps having extra accuracy or damage against them, being as this is a weapon. That all being said, I don't really think that the initial design for the elemental shield itself was to be used against wyverns, being that skeletal wyverns didn't come out until a year after the elemental shield did. And yes, I know that dragonbane weaponry is a thing, but at this point it was not. And I don't even think that wyverns were considered dragons at this point, so this could be a branch in history where maybe they could have gone this way instead. Number 2. Lion's Helm. Some of you who follow along with the Old School RuneScape team's live streams have probably seen this item before, because it was part of an art stream in 2021 where players sent their ideas and designs for items that fit into the old school aesthetic and design space. A player named A Wild Muffin submitted this sketch of the helmet, which ModBrow ran with on the stream to make this model. I'm unaware if this model is still accessible in the game cache, but it seemed to have accidentally made it into the game at one point because there's a note on the wiki page about the item being removed after a week because it was, and I'm quoting here, not intended to be released or obtainable yet. That said, 4 years later the helmet is still nowhere to be found in game. Will we ever get our hands on this ferocious helmet? It honestly feels like Fortis Coliseum would have been an appropriate place for such a helmet. While it's a popular misconception that Colosseum gladiators sported helmets depicting beasts like lions, historically, lions, along with other wild animals, were used as feature creatures at gladiatorial stadiums. So being that this is a video game, I think we can make the leap in logic to allow it here, especially with it already being a popular motif for gladiators in media. Also, just a little fun fact about the lion helm, because it's unfinished, it had the same inventory icon and chat head as Varric's full helm. Now, before we get to number 1 here, I did have a couple of honorable mentions for the video. There were just so many options, and I wanted to talk about a couple more items that didn't quite make the numbered 15 list. Zenaris Choir. This is a really weird one. Before September of 2018, the choir acted sort of as a follower rather than a regular NPC. That means if you had a pet out with you while walking around Zenaris, you literally could not get the choir random event there. Which also sort of indirectly means that before 2018, if you had the choir follow you, you temporarily had a follower or a pet. So congratulations. But you didn't get to keep it, obviously, and I'm not sure why there's even an inventory item for this in the game cache, but there is. And that's why it makes it on this, albeit low spot on the list. I also wanted to point out a very similar NPC follower item thing. With the 20th anniversary event, a very similar tactic was used to accomplish a follower pet, that being this sickly looking gnome child, which also exists in the game cache's history. Torva, full helm, plate body, and plate legs. These are an honorable mention because they were once in the game, redesigned. A portion of the player base hated the new design and begged Jagex to revert the change. Instead of doing that, Jagex decided to add these back into the game cache as unobtainable versions of Torva, so that players using RuneLite can at least use plugins to make it look like they're wearing the old Torva, for themselves at least. Personally, I like the old helmet much more than the new ones, but I lean towards the new model on the plate body and legs. Not that I have Torva, I primarily play an Iron Man who only has good luck when it comes to pets and not gear. Anyway, Torva is an honorable mention because of all that. Felt wrong to exclude it from the list altogether, but the other entries felt more fitting as actual numbered entries to me over this one. And finally, number 1. Ancient Mjolnir. The Making History quest was added to the game in November of 2005. Along with it, the Enchanted Key, and the 3 Mjolnir for the gods Guthix, Zamorak, and Saradaman that you hunt down using the key. But 5 months later, with a totally different quest, a Soulsbane, a 4th Mjolnir was added to the game cache, the Ancient Mjolnir for the god Zaros. During a Soulsbane, Tolna tells us, I managed to find the remnants of an ancient civilization that the stories talked about. It seems people used to worship a god there years ago in numbers far greater than a simple cult following. Sadly, there's little remaining, so I have nothing else to tell. As soon as I entered this area, the ground swallowed me whole. It felt like there was something watching, waiting. It's like there was some evil power under the ground that wanted me to suffer, as if it got some sort of empowerment from it. At least whatever it is, it doesn't want to reveal itself to the world yet. That quote, plus the Soulsbane location and relation to the dig site, added with the fact that the ancient Mjolnir model matches the dig site's Zarosian icons, which are slightly off compared to the others in-game, and this item's sheer existence, and the data was added alongside Soulsbane, all raise speculation that a Soulsbane was at one point potentially meant to be a sequel to the dig site quest. But, for whatever reason, that and the Mjolnir were scrapped. But as a Zaros fan, I'm kinda bummed. Give it to me, Jagex. I want this Mjolnir really bad. Thank you. Not quite an honorable mention, but I wanted to talk about a semi-related topic. There are a couple of items that you used to be able to note, but now cannot. There are a few examples of this, but the coolest, to me at least, are the new Crystal Bow and new Crystal Shield. These are the only versions of the crystal items that were tradable, so it makes sense that these are the only noted versions to ever exist. Just in case you're not aware, there's generally 2 reasons that you can't note a specific item. It's either A, it's a stackable item as is, so why would you need to note it, or B, the item is untradeable. Anyway, these must have at one point been notable because they were, as I had mentioned, tradable. Why Jagex decided to make these untradeable, I'm not entirely sure, but to be honest, who really had more than one crystal bow or crystal shield back then anyway? The original items, new crystal shield and new crystal bow, were removed, replaced with items not called new. I believe this was done because initially crystal items had a mechanic where the less durability or charges they had, the weaker they became. This has since been changed, and if you weren't around for this change and are wondering what happened with the existing new crystal shields and new crystal bows, they were replaced with crystal weapon seeds with the release of Song of the Elves. There's one last topic I wanted to cover today, guys, and that is items that were at one point unobtainable, but since have been released. Kind of quickly take a look at those. We've got the Blood Talisman, which was initially intended to be used while crafting blood runes. It was removed from the game's files with Corinne's Blood Altar, and then it was re-added and made obtainable with Guardians of the Rift. Now, there's not a whole heck of a lot of reason to have this with the Blood Altar and Corinne existing, but I guess if you really wanted to, you could go to the actual Blood Altar in Mauritania using the Blood Talisman or Blood Tiara and get in there. You could go through the Abyss to get there, or you could use the Guardians of the Rift teleport to get there. Monkey Skull and Ancient Gorilla Grigri. The Monkey Skull, since 2004, has been hidden behind a locked door in the Temple of Marimbo dungeon, and it took 11 years for Jagex to finally make this item accessible, but you still have to complete the hard Western Province's diaries to actually unlock this item. Once you have, you can make the Ancient Gorilla Grigri and get your blue-faced hairy gorilla, I guess. Slight flex on those who haven't done the Western Province's diaries, I guess. Really, honestly, other than that, it's a bunch of quest items, like keys for Sons of the Father, a couple pages of the Kadiris memoirs that have been added, and a couple pieces from the Eyes of the Gluffery quest. Nothing else too terribly exciting or interesting that has, made its way onto this list, but, I guess if some of these items made it into the game, I guess there's hope for some of the items on this list in today's video. Maybe we'll see something like the Lion's Helm or the Return of the Pumpkin Pie. I would really like to see elemental weaponry, though. I'm not really sure what niche it could fill, but I think it could be really cool. I mean, I'm very biased. Purple's my favorite color. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This has been Worst. See you in the next one.